It's come to my attention that right now in the Kingdom Hearts community, we are in this very unique Twilight era that we haven't had in nearly a decade. There are currently no ongoing storylines happening besides us just waiting for Kingdom Hearts 4 or Missing Link to come out. I figured now would be a good time to kind of give my opinion on each game, given that we have them basically in their full context at the moment. We'll go ahead and start with what I deem are my least favorite games in the franchise, and we'll go up from there. However, by saying that these are my least favorite games does not mean that I dislike or hate these games. It is just that these games do not particularly scratch the itch that I come to Kingdom Hearts for, because there are multiple reasons why people come to this franchise, whether it be because of gameplay, story, or because they see just how smoking hot Xemnas is. Baby. With all that said and done though, let's go ahead and get into the list. Kingdom Hearts VCast. I didn't even know this was a game. Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. The franchise has always been known for having some really good music, so a rhythm game in my opinion was sort of inevitable. However, despite how much I like this game, and I do believe it is a good start for someone who may be wanting to get into the franchise, since it is essentially a giant recap of the Darkseeker saga, I do have a few major gripes that have to do with the game's pacing and its story. Each area isn't equally represented in my opinion in terms of importance to the story. As much as I like BBS, I do not think it needs to be covered more than Kingdom Hearts 3, which only has 8 songs. Yes, technically they had 9, but I'm not counting Let It Go and neither should you. KH3 just had so much more weight for the overall story, and I don't think it was covered adequately. This is also the shortest game in the series if you don't count 0.8, with it only being about 15 to 20 minutes of actual new content after 8 hours or so of gameplay. It just doesn't feel worth playing for a veteran player, regardless of the information that we get about Kairi, Xehanort, Unreality, and the unnamed star or Yzora's girlfriend, whatever you want to call her. Union Cross has some annoying gameplay and a story that takes way too long to get going, waiting 300 to 400 missions in Agrabah just to finally get something more interesting is a bit too much to ask of a player when we get 5 mission updates after several months, ultimately leading to nothing worthwhile. When this game does do something interesting with a plot, boy, it goes off. Some of my favorite moments in the franchise come from this game. Getting to those parts, however, are difficult and comes really close to just not being worth it. There is just so much obvious filler in this game. It makes it hard, you know? But overall, I've already discussed my opinions with the pros and cons of Union Cross in a video examining the game as a whole if you're interested. Link will be in the description down below. I just don't want to keep talking about a game that I spent 30 minutes talking about already. Recoded doesn't have a story, at least not one that justifies its own game. I tend to agree with a lot of what King K says about the game. Ultimately, nothing happens in this game that affects our Sora, and so any sort of consequences that happen to Data Sora are relevant. It's just really hard to play a game when there is nothing that is driving me to continue playing, when there's nothing happening that is compelling me to progress. However, I will say that the gameplay is probably the best out of the handheld Kingdom Hearts games by a country mile. I just really wish that there was something more interesting story-wise behind this game, because the gameplay is great, but there's nothing here to make me want to play it. Dark Road, without a doubt, has one of the best stories in the franchise. This is not up for debate. The exploration of Xehanort's upbringing and how that ultimately led him down to the path that we see in the rest of the games, amazing. It does so many great things with the world building and mythos about Kingdom Hearts, as well as the rest of the universe. Playing the game, however, does not spark joy, as the kids say. So in my opinion, it loses some points here. I don't really want to harp too much about this game, since much like Union Cross, I've also detailed my thoughts and opinions about Dark Road in a recent video. Go look at it if you want to look at it. I'm not your mom. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, or Rechain, is an RNG mess. The card deck building concept is not inherently bad. Like, I promise this is not my Riku bias showing, but it is the best during his side of the story. The fights and the decks are crafted with each other in mind, so if you're not beating a boss, it's due to the fact that you're button mashing, or just because you do not have the skills in order to beat the boss, not because you don't have the right cards. Comparing this to Sora's story, we have the ability to customize our deck and what cards are going to be in those decks. However, those cards are completely random, so you do not have a choice of what card you get when, with the exception of like a few boss encounters. With personal experience of this game, it's just really hard to want to go back because it puts you in a situation where you are either not prepared for a battle because of how low numbered your cards are, or you've been forced to grind until you get the numbers high enough so you can just brute force your way to victory because now you're over leveled just because you have to fight some science hippie back to back. He is easily my least favorite character in the franchise, and it would have been better if he stayed not alive. I mean, overall, the story is fine. The idea of a location where the further you venture into, the more you lose your memory and yourself as a concept is very unsettling, and it really carries the mood and atmosphere for me. Also, seeing the organization members we don't get to fight in KH2 pre-final mix is also a treat, but fuck Vexen. These next two games are very tricky to categorize. Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance seem to be games that go back and forth in my head in terms of which I prefer. I think the gameplay and flow motion of DDD are a lot better than the combat and shock locks of BBS. However, I think the story for BBS is so far beyond the story for DDD, but Riku is a playable character in Dream Drop, though, so that brings up a couple points where BBS is a little bit of a tease for having Destiny Islands as a cutscene only world, but you can also see baby Riku there. I just don't know. DDD brings Riku's character arc much closer to a finished product, so it's definitely one of my favorites to replay, but the drop system makes me want to ram my head into a keyhole. All while Birth by Sleep sets up the grand overarching plot for the first arc of the series and provides setup for some of the most emotional and heart-wrenching scenes this franchise has to offer. However, ultimately, I think I'm going to be putting Dream Drop Distance over Birth by Sleep for the world differences. While there are certain worlds in Birth by Sleep that have different encounters and bosses, there are a few like Radiant Gardens where it's just a one-for-one for all of the playable characters. Comparing that to Birth by Sleep, where basically every world has different areas and bosses for both Sora and Riku's adventures throughout the Sleeping Realms. 0.8 barely makes it past the last two games because of its ending. This is an overglorified tech demo that brought me back to Kingdom Hearts and made me bawl like a baby the first time I played through it. Aqua is a phenomenal character, and watching her be so headstrong in her belief that she will not fall to darkness and be the wayfinder for those lost, and then to see her fate in Kingdom Hearts 3 just made it all the more heartbreaking. I love this stupid little demo and I replay it randomly when I want to feel something. The Zodiac boss is a lot of fun, and it really gave me hope in terms of where Kingdom Hearts 3's combat was going to go. Kingdom Hearts 1 is the one that started it all. The combat system and the platforming most definitely have not aged well in the last couple years, but I still get that nostalgic feeling every time I boot up this game. Helping Kairi and Riku help make a raft, gathering supplies that would maybe last us 2 days if we were being generous. Growing up with Donald and Goofy to suddenly be on an adventure with them is amazing. Watching Riku slowly being manipulated by Maleficent and then getting turned into Ansem's vessel until he eventually helps King Mickey close the door to darkness. Oh, and the absolute heartbreak when Riku gets the Keyblade back and it makes Donald and Goofy abandon you because they have to follow the key. Just holy shit. Going to the various Disney worlds and seeing Sora change to adapt to those worlds was also just straight up magical. There are so many moments in this game that either make me cry my eyes out or laugh my butt off, and multiple points in between. This game is just straight up beautiful. It's one of those games that theoretically should have never been made, but somehow Tetsuya Nomura had this god-awful mess and turned it into some sort of mythical, beautiful adventure that is one of the best games I've ever played. Days is the inverse of Coded, for better and for worse. I wholeheartedly believe that 358 over 2 Days has the best story out of any Kingdom Hearts game. The way they explore Roxas's life in the organization and his eventual defection is damn near a masterclass in storytelling. Xion is a lovely new character that lets us further explore the idea of destiny that the game is themed around. Axel, once again, is charming, and he also acts as sort of this mentor figure to Roxas and Xion, who are basically just newborn children in the bodies of teenagers with no idea of what the world really is like outside of what Xemnas has set up for them. All that praise aside, the gameplay is a slog. I wouldn't say it's as bad as the gameplay for Union or Dark Road, but it is extremely tiring to play throughout the entirety of the game. Because you see, Days was originally developed for the DS back in the day, and it was meant to be played in kind of more of a small car ride bursts. I would argue that even in these small bursts, it wouldn't mitigate how tedious the game is in the day-to-day format that it's in. However, despite how painful this game is to play, I would argue that it creates a greater connection with Xion and Axel. Some of the best moments in the game are between Xion and Axel. The infamous Roxas, that's a stick. Do I need to say more? But inversely, some of the most stress-inducing and anxiety-ridden moments of the game are when Xion and Axel are no longer with you. This is one of the first games that actually hit a emotional core to me, and I think about it all the time. First, relating this to the boring missions of being at school and having your best friend not be there because they have a doctor's appointment or they're sick, and then later relating it to work in a similar situation. I love this game so fucking much, and I want a remake from the ground up. Please, Square. I will fund it. Okay, so this is where things get a little controversial, so please, just stay with me. Kingdom Hearts 2 is my second favorite entry in the series, and before any of you go any further, I just want to acknowledge that yes, Kingdom Hearts 3 does have some faults, but so does every game in this series. I hope I have made that abundantly clear throughout the course of this video. I've just grown incredibly tired of the discourse surrounding these two games in particular, because in most people's eyes it seems that Kingdom Hearts 2 is this untouchable masterpiece that can never be replicated, and Kingdom Hearts 3 is this game that deserves to rot in the deepest region of the Realm of Darkness because of this reason or that reason, or because I said so. Brandon Sanderson said, "If the critic tries to make your story into the one they would have written, rather than a better version of the story you were trying to write, that is the single worst advice you can get." And honestly, I kind of feel like that is the main discourse around Kingdom Hearts 3. Don't get me wrong, the fandom has been waiting for this game for years. Its development was very far from smooth. There was a ton of hype surrounding this game. There was just no possible way for this game to be released and it to successfully capture everyone, whether that be the casual fans or the hardcore fans alike. I mean, fuck, this game has been building hype since 2005. This game came out in 2019. 14 years. All of this to say that Kingdom Hearts 3 did have its own problems. The game could have definitely saved Aqua earlier and given a bit more of a taste of the organization members before the graveyard, introducing their movesets in little by little into their own battles, increasing the intensity for the graveyard battles, and then going all out in the data fights. I'm not going to comment on the difficulty because that is just way too subjective of a topic for this type of video. It would basically just be us going back and forth about who was better or harder to beat, the Lingering Will or the final boss of Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, the embodiment of darkness. Kingdom Hearts 2's biggest problem, in my opinion, are the secondary trips throughout the story. For the most part, it's an issue of those second trips not adding anything narratively to the overall plot of those worlds, just kind of repeating the same original story but in a different way, essentially making your previous trips redundant. The worst contributor to this is the Pride Lands. The first trip is your Disney, the Lion King story, except you throw in Pete and the Heartless into the story. We save the day and Simba takes his rightful place as king, accepting who he is. Our second visit, however, has Scar's the Ghost haunting him, saying that he isn't shit, and reminding Simba that his tax plan isn't going to do enough to fight inflation. Except we just did this, didn't we? We helped Simba recognize that he is the true king of the Pride Lands, and we come back to just do it over again, except with different boss battles. It doesn't help us get a better understanding of Sora, the concepts of identity, or the heart any more than what we just did in the first visit. Port Royal also really annoys me. The Grim Reaper Heartless is indeed a very cool boss, easily top 5 Heartless, but wasn't exactly necessary to regather all of the coins. It would have been better placing it as a kind of midway boss compared to having an entire second run dedicated to it. It's just blatant padding, and it's infuriating to hear that, oh, KH3 has all of this padding, when KH2 literally did it first. Kingdom Hearts 3 had me crying so many times, whether that be watching all of the trios reuniting, having Shion regain who she is as a person, seeing Kairi still end up dying, and the look on Sora's face as it was all seamlessly for nothing, resetting the entirety of reality just for the one person that he cares about probably more than anyone else in the world to still end up dead. KH2, while yes, had me crying, but it was to a much lesser degree. There was always this aura of victory throughout the finale of KH2. Yes, we were up against the odds, but victory never seemed out of reach. The moments, in my opinion, again, that felt dire or felt like a lose-lose situation would be Goofy's like fake-out death, or Sora's fight against Roxas, having Roxas fight us holding nothing back to prove that he has the right to exist, was a very solemn moment, because in the end I cared about Roxas. I wanted him to survive, but I knew that in the end it was either him or Sora, and that was terrible. Kingdom Hearts 3, on the other hand, always made me feel like I was up against impossible odds, that we would need some sort of miracle in order to beat this new organization. And it just hit so much harder, despite the fact that Square spoiled the shit out of this moment in the final release trailer. Fuck you, by the way, Square. To see everyone perish just for Sora to come back and try it all again. The combat in both games, in my opinion, are peak. Kingdom Hearts 2 would definitely have the better combat if Remind never came into existence. With that free patch, the game instantly felt better. But, you know, that's just my opinion. If you prefer KH2's combat system, that's your prerogative. When comparing the games and their final packages, KH3 just barely edges out 2. Both of these games are amazing. They are a core part of who I am as a person, and at the end of the day, I love all of these games. You're not going to see me hating because you like Recoded or Rebirth more than 3. Like I said, all of these games have different strengths and weaknesses, and these strengths and weaknesses appeal to different people. And you know, that's okay, because even if we are in different unions, or possibly in different houses if my theory about Missing Link is correct, we're all Keyblade wielders. And we're all letting our hearts be our guiding key. But with that, that's going to conclude my Kingdom Hearts ramblings. So please go ahead and talk trash on all of my opinions, because I know somebody is going to tell me that I am completely wrong. So go ahead and comment it down below. What are your favorite and least favorite Kingdom Hearts games? Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you all for watching. Let your heart be your guiding key, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.